going on YouTube? It's your boy D-Free back with another fight video. Now before I get started, make sure y'all hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. Well, breaking news, Errol, Spence, and Keith Thurman are in talk of making a fight at 154 pounds. They looking for the target date sometime in April. Now this is big news because a lot of people was wondering if Errol Spence was going to fight Keith Thurman, because we heard that the WBC had ordered that mandatory for the WBC belt at 147 pounds. And we all know that Errol Spence was trying to get the undisputed title fight with Bud Crawford, but those talks fell through. And so a lot of people wanted to know if Errol Spence was going to take the fight with Keith Thurman. We all know that Errol Spence tried to get that fight with Keith Thurman a few years back, and Keith Thurman denied Errol Spence the opportunity to fight and unify the title. Errol Spence was the IBF champion, and Keith Thurman was the, I believe, the WBA champion at the time. And Errol Spence was trying to get that fight, and Keith Thurman denied him the opportunity. So Keith Thurman been asking to get the fight with Errol Spence, and Errol Spence was telling everybody he wasn't going to give Keith Thurman the opportunity because he didn't give him the opportunity. Well, Errol Spence had a change of heart, and he said, I will fight Keith Thurman, but it won't be for the WBC title at 147. We will fight at 154 pounds with no title on the line. Now, Errol Spence is not dropping his titles. He's just going up there to fight Keith Thurman at 154 pounds. But I believe it's for Errol Spence to get acclimated at 154 pounds. And if he feels good at 154 pounds and he believes that that fight with Bud Crawford is not going to go through, I think he's going to drop the belts and stay at 154 pounds. We all know that Jermell Charlo is the undisputed champion at 154. Jermell Charlo's fight has been postponed due to Jermell Charlo having an injury. And so that fight, Jermell is supposed to be fighting sometime in May. So Errol Spence will be fighting Keith Thurman at 154. And he still will be the champion at 147. So he can still come down and fight the winner of Stanionis and Virgil Ortiz at 147 pounds, and then go up to 54. And if Jermell moves to 160 after he has his mandatory fight, Errol Spence can fight for one of those vacant belts, either the WBC, the WBA, or the IBF. So we're going to see what happens with that. But I find this fight very interesting, and I know a lot of people is like, Keith Thurman is not the same Keith Thurman. Errol Spence is just going to run through Keith Thurman. I don't believe Errol Spence is going to run through Keith Thurman. I do believe Errol Spence is going to beat Keith Thurman. I always thought Errol Spence would beat Keith Thurman, but I don't think he's going to run through him. Keith Thurman is still a good fighter. He beat Mario Barrio. I know a lot of people are like, well, Tank Davis knocked out Mario Barrio. Keith Thurman couldn't stop Mario Barrio. But Keith Thurman hasn't stopped nobody for a while now. I believe his last knockout was in 2013, 2014. So he hasn't been stopping anybody for a while now. Keith Thurman was coming off a 2.5-year layoff as well. And Keith Thurman, he hasn't been that knockout artist that he was earlier in his career. So I don't fault him in not knocking out Mario Barrio. I just don't believe Keith Thurman is that fighter anymore. But Keith Thurman did outbox Mario Barrio the entire fight, although he was hurt to the body once in that fight. But he was able to still outbox Mario Barrio. So I know a lot of people is going to be mad about this fight. They're going to ask, oh, why is he not trying to make the fight with Bud Crawford? Well, it's not up for him to make the fight with Bud Crawford. He already sent Bud Crawford an offer. Bud Crawford already said he accepted that offer. So if Bud Crawford wants that fight, he could just accept the offer that they gave him, and they can go ahead and make that fight. They don't really have to go back to negotiation tables. Like I said, they already gave him an offer. He said he accepted the offer. He told the world that he accepted the offer. So all he had to do is say, hey, I accepted that offer. Send me that contract. We can sign it, and we can get the undisputed title fight on right now. So we're going to see what happens. I like this fight. I think this is going to be a good fight for Errol Spence to get acclimated at 154. He always said if he didn't get the fight with Bud Crawford, he was going to go to 154. And I believe him. But, I mean, a lot of people saying, well, he said he wasn't going to fight Keith Thurman. Well, at that time, he didn't want to fight Keith Thurman. Now, if the man changed his mind and say, look, I'm going to go ahead and fight him and get him out the way, why are y'all mad? A lot of people wanted to see Errol Spence and Keith Thurman, so you're getting the Errol Spence and Keith Thurman. A lot of people wanted to see the Errol Spence and Keith Thurman before the Bud Crawford fight. So you're getting that fight. There's no reason why the fans should be mad. I think it's a good fight. I think Keith Thurman is a credible opponent. Keith Thurman only has one loss to Manny Pacquiao, and a lot of people say that he really didn't lose that fight to Manny Pacquiao, because the second half of that fight, Keith Thurman was outboxing Manny Pacquiao, and he was turning it on. So that fight was an argumentative fight. So a lot of people had it Manny Pacquiao, a lot of people had Keith Thurman winning that fight. So, but he lost the fight, he lost his belt, and that's the only loss that he got on his resume. He's never been knocked out, he's never been stopped, he's never been wobbled. We've seen him hurt from a body shot, but he's never been wobbled from a hit to the head. But that remains to be seen what's going to happen with the Errol Spence and Keith Thurman. It's going to be, I believe it's going to be a major fight at 154. I think they haven't said what the venue is going to be. They haven't said what the date is going to be. I believe they probably going to put it in Dallas, because it's not a title fight, so it really doesn't warrant it a fight in Las Vegas, because it's not a title fight. So, I mean, it's still a big fight because it's two big name opponents, Keith Thurman and Errol Spence. But we know Errol Spence in Dallas, Texas, that stadium is going to sell out for Errol Spence versus Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman is from Florida, so that's not too far away. That's I believe like an hour plane ride from Florida to Dallas. It's like an hour plane ride, so it wouldn't be that hard for the Florida fan base to come out to Dallas and support their fighter in Keith Thurman. And we know the Dallas fan base is going to be there for Errol Spence. So we're going to see what happens with this fight and see what date they come up with and see where the venue is going to be at. But it's going to be a great fight. And once this fight is actually finalized, I will come with a fight breakdown. So just be on the lookout for that. It's your boy, D Free. Shout out to the TWT, the winning team. Peace.